But I think it's really useful to be able to have the editor on for the last of the script changes. And obviously, there's a big committee that is usually involved in your script, and you may not want another voice. But solving things, solving problems, story problems in the script level costs you much less money than fixing it in post.
If I was a director, I would certainly be thinking of the composer when I'm, initiating the project. I mean, if I'm writing the project, sometimes a writer-director will be thinking of music and the type of composer they want. So, the earlier the better. We always say that hiring the composer earlier doesn't cost you any more money, but it might even get you a better score. It gives the composer more opportunity to think about the project, think about thematic material, to kind of get absorbed in the project and just to get his arms around the creative process to where he can begin addressing a lot of the dramatic and storytelling issues that are going to come up.
So I think the job pretty much breaks into three phases. The first phase being leading up to what happens leading up to the scoring session. This would include if there's any work that needs to be done up front in terms of playback, musicals, dancing, thump tracks, anything like that. Just kind of planning ahead for those kind of disasters. The music editor does not get too involved in music clearances or in picking songs. It's usually the music supervisor who's tied in with record studios, who's talking to A&R people and cutting deals for unreleased songs. And the whole soundtrack thing has become a revenue stream independent of the movie. The music editor will facilitate that when there are songs that are being considered. Somebody like me will cut them in and preview them for people, and we're asked for our input, and we can give it either actively or passively by what we facilitate and don't facilitate. Then there's the entire temp dubs, huge thing anymore. A temp dub is where the music editor draws from previously recorded music and basically scores the movie using pre-recorded material. This is work that's all thrown out, and it's important for a number of reasons. Number one, it helps the filmmaker sell their film to the studio. It makes it more of a experience that the studio can get behind, and it generates excitement. What I try to do when I'm temping a movie is to show what it's going to look like, and to do exactly what a composer is supposed to do, which is to enhance the emotional response. And you can also use music to clarify things at points. This is all stuff that Chris can talk about very well, because it's just the use of music. The point is, with a temp dub, you're not committing a full orchestra and all the budgetary constraints. There's basically, you're hiring one guy and his equipment to kind of go down the path ahead of time and break the ice, try out different ideas, and when the temp dub is done, you can show it to the studio, you can show preview reels with that kind of stuff, and also test audiences. You can bring up your test scores for previews, and that gets the marketing department behind the film too. So this is all, by the time the final score is put on, which is about posterity, critical response, and what's going to live on about the movie, by that time all of the wars have been fought. All the filmmaking wars are over. The whole temp dub thing is really about winning those wars. Then another part of the music editor's job is facilitating the composer, helping the composer. Anything I can do to help by being at the spotting session, taking notes. There's a whole clerical side of the job where I provide the composer with spotting notes and then breakdown notes if they're required, which is a detailed second by second or even less frame by frame description in writing, given timings of everything that happens on the screen, cuts, dialogue, camera moves, actions. It's kind of a holdover from the days before composers had access to picture independently, but evidently it's still sometimes useful. There's that clerical job. There's the preparation of click tracks for the scoring session. It's our job to help the composer, sometimes with the music editor, but most composers have it together enough to calculate what tempos for how long they have to be going at to get the music to fit properly. After the scoring session, the music is turned over to the music editor. At that point, I'm the custodian of the music, and I prepare it for the dub, which is doing whatever fixes need to be done, putting it into its final form, showing it to the director, whatever needs to be done. Then we get to the dub stage. At the dub, the music editor is there as in multiple roles, as an advocate for the composer and what the composer was trying to do, because you've been through the process. So when people kind of balk sometimes because they're not used to this music, which is a new arrival on the scene, you know, sometimes I've been there to explain things, to argue for things, to fight for things. And other times people just listen to a cue and go, well, this is awful, we can't use this at all. Wasn't there, what about that thing back in the beginning when they first met? Can't we use that here? And then it's my job to do actual music editing, which is to take a piece of music which was written for somewhere else and recut it to fit and try to preserve the musicality of it and the synchronicity of it. Then we're through the dub. There's probably one more phase after the dub, which is the legal stuff, which is in order for everybody to get paid royalties and residuals and things, there needs to be a record of how the music was used, how long it was, who wrote it. If they're quoting other themes, you know, how much time was spent, you know, in Star Trek V, how much did they use the original Star Trek theme? That guy has to be paid. So there's just that last clerical paperwork job.